My lords, the cheeky taxi driver who refused to take me from Portland Place to my home in Highgate Village, saying it was too far, it was lunchtime, and adding insult to injury when he shouted after me as I walked away, has anyone ever told you how much shorter you look off stage? This cheeky fellow would have been more than vindicated to observe me here today, perceptibly further diminished, even on stage, as I must appear to the serried ranks above me, and as befits the humility of a maiden of 77 years, an itinerant musician who has fiddled his way through life. What could so alien a character offer in return for this honor? Perhaps that long and concentrating discipline demanded by music, which harnesses a player to a rhythm, a basic rhythm that at once supports and governs him, giving him a wider view, a wider sense of the myriad fluctuating pulses of all speeds which propel mankind on its tortuous course. Perhaps also a sense of the span of man's works. Might it be the intuitive counterpart of the learned historian's grasp of human destiny? Within these chambers is a remarkable human organism, which has bridged some 5 centuries precisely because its concerns are not chained to the immediate or the transient, but are rather guided by the longer spans of succeeding lifetimes. I'm sometimes saddened that wider sections of our population are not inclined to hold the House of Lords in the esteem it so richly deserves, nor to consider it in its very contemporary and essential role in today's ever more confrontational and most dangerous world. This House has the talents, the abilities, and the opportunities to explore in depth basic causes. It does not have to be distracted by symptoms, by immediate crisis, by the dissatisfactions, the discontents, and the accusations with which the other place must daily battle. But the topics I would suggest, although apparently abstract, are nonetheless of supreme urgency. In attempting to formulate whole truths, it may be possible to reduce the area in which 2 separate half-truths do battle. For instance, take culture versus economy. I believe I'm not infringing on the Maiden's non-controversial strictures when I suggest that hardly one noble lord here present would tolerate digging up our beautiful parks or our cemeteries where nature and man perpetuate the cycle of life and death merely to spur real estate values and housing markets to new yields. By the same token, may I plead that good music, too, feeds those very same intangible tangibles, which enable us to breathe and to dream. For man acts and behaves according to his visions, be they ideals or simply ambitions. It is those dreams which shape our lives, too often twisted into nightmares by hideous uncertainties and fears. Now, consider a great orchestra, the very embodiment of humanity's need to express, to communicate its emotions and its thoughts. Some 100 men and women dedicated to a most exacting purpose, the making of beautiful music. They bring out from within that image of perfection, perfection of sound, rhythm, melody, harmony, which translate the mysteries, secrets, and the promise of burgeoning seas into a language we can all understand. Whenever I work with a great orchestra, be it the Royal Philharmonic, the Halle, or any of the other first-rate groups of musicians here and all over the world, I'm deeply moved by the contemplation of so unique a human company. How could anyone consider reducing on false premises such essential and inspiring examples of human achievement? This leads me to a plea for both the social recognition and the financial reward for the teaching profession. It is teachers, musical or other, who are called upon to fulfill the greatest and most important task of society, to instill in our young not only learning, but character, and may I add, compassion, courtesy, and creativity in a society wherein the lack of those basic qualities can only encourage crime. I would like to suggest that the forming of character precede the study of texts. For how often are our minds led to the shocking, the terrifying, the bewildering, all of these symptoms the evidence of a growing malaise, rather than to their basic underlying causes? Applying the same principle, I would urge such funds as may come from the lottery to go not only to the fruits, visible fruits, which we all eat, but to the basic roots of the plant. For instance, arts could not exist without crafts. Crafts could not exist without schools and the people who produce these. Such and other projects which aim, as one of my interests, to channel the energies, the wild energies, which now are rampant in certain classrooms, into better purposes, partly by music and singing. It seems to me that this house is the ideal assembly of men and women to formulate a platform totally divorced from party lines, a platform which would reflect a profound analysis of causes and would suggest approaches affecting the future of the peoples of these islands, indeed of the world, for their environment, cultural, physical, and spiritual, is already ours and everyone's responsibility. Such a platform would deepen the understanding of many other contemporary situations and dilemmas. I feel that we must all try to fathom the processes which interact between apparently disparate conditions, in counterbalance and tension as with gravity or the magnetic forces, which both attract and repel, and which, when only partly understood, might lead to a greater consensus of public opinion, a coherence, instead of the inexorable process of souring, which, as curds and whey, can only separate. Consider the inherent dangers in democracy, in which unbridled freedom may well lead to chaos. Music is the one art which can create order out of chaos, as does the gift of life to matter. For music creates a living, pulsating work out of random aural vibrations. This principle, applicable to society, even to sound, has actually been demonstrated by leaving children alone with a host of varied musical instruments and the injunction to listen, thus transforming noise not only into sound, but into a message. Gradually, one or another will find a rhythm, a melody better organized, more expressive, which will attract attention and imitation. Take chaos versus dictatorship. The examples are only too close, too present. Take the issue of the free market with its release of dynamic energies, yet entailing untold suffering and sacrifice for all peoples, including our own. Or the relationship of culture to crime. We know that in Hitler's Germany. Study the advantages of the prophylactic versus the merely therapeutic, or the confrontation between states and cultures, and between many more such dualities, which I must spare you today. But to take only the latter, states and cultures, we are witnessing the proliferation of states and the extinction of cultures. In other words, more national anthems, often commissioned of Englishmen, with no doubt overtones of empire, and less music, more bombs and fewer songs. What we actually need are fewer sovereign states and more autonomous cultures. It is time that the great trees in the center of each cultured garden were tended and determinedly protected, rather than that high, harsh walls be allowed to throttle the garden. I would allow the voices of cultures the rights of initiative and veto against proposed legislation as of joined states, in the same way as the House of Lords, a cultural institution, possesses the similar rights with respect to the House of Commons. May I be allowed to plead for one other among many issues which, to your relief, I will ignore today. I believe the issue is quite non-controversial, for it is only a consideration of economy rather than of policy which inhibits our decision to rejoin the world's cultures assembled within UNESCO. Directly after the war in 1945, this noble concept was born right here in London after a long gestation and against the background of those tragic war years. Its first Secretary General was none other than our own Julian Huxley, the great biologist. Conceived as a non-political assembly, it was soon politicized by the United States and the USSR, yet it remains an inspiration to the world with a first-class Secretary General and thousands of highly educated, dedicated people. If we want to play a role in the building of a somewhat better world, it is imperative that we play it not only on the European, but on the world stage. No doubt we are waiting for the American lead, but do not the noble lords agree that our voices, unanimous, might urge an independent initiative? Perhaps in due course I could move one or two resolutions. How I wish that this great House might succeed in extending those virtues of conduct which have proven their worth within these walls and well beyond over the centuries. Perhaps this prayer I have voiced would be in a goodly manner achieved by the platform I suggest, a platform which would be continually improved, refined, revised, and above all discussed in every pub, school, club, and above all in the media. In turn, the echoes might bring about a more informed public opinion and might serve to guide our political platforms as well. As Plato says, music is a moral law. It gives wings to the mind, soul to the universe, flight to the imagination, charm to sadness, and life to everything. I know I've taken my time and wish to express my gratitude to my fellow lords, particularly to Lord Donoghue of Ashton, and for his wonderful words, for calling this debate, thereby legitimizing my one and only maiden speech. In one way, a form of wedding. Perhaps the Right Reverend Lord Spiritual will bless it.
My lords, it is a great honor falls to me to congratulate the noble Lord Menuhin on behalf of the whole House. I think his speech, we all agree that his speech was quite outstanding. The depth, the breadth of it, the amount of substance, as well as his brilliant presentation. And we're all very grateful to him, and we hope to hear him many times in the future. But just one point I make, I think he's going to feel quite happy, certainly as far as arts discussions are concerned, where there are not fights across the chamber, where we all seem to be on the same side. And indeed, we've got the same speakers over the years when I have intervened in these debates. We have many of the same people, and we come back again and again, pressing hard for the arts.